Friendship was awesome. It was definitely probably the funniest and most awkward movie of the year for me. Tim Robinson is a fantastic comedian, and, his sketch comedy show, I'm Sorry to Bother You, is absolutely awesome. If you've never seen it, you got to watch it. But when I saw that he was going to be in a movie and it was an A24 film, I was like, holy shit, like, this is going to be awesome. His comedy in an A24 stylish film, I was all for it. And then, it's starring Paul Rudd. I mean, Paul Rudd's a great actor. He's funny. So it seemed like a really good matchup, right? The story follows a guy who's trying to make friends with his neighbor, and they end up having a pretty good time, end up having a pretty cool hangout, and then turns out that his neighbor actually doesn't really want to be his friend. He's just glad to be a neighbor, but that's about all he would like for it to be. And it just shows how this guy spirals out of control because he loses, his friend who's not technically his friend. But so Tim Robinson plays Craig, and of course I had to see it because I was like, his name is Craig. My name is Craig. I'm not really that much of a socially awkward person. I'm definitely like an introverted extrovert, but I enjoy being around people. But he is definitely someone that does not know how to be around people. So it was just funny to see myself as like the polar opposite of how I actually am. And he has his wife, Tammy, played by the beautiful Kate Mara. And it turns out she had cancer. It's now in remission. But she just, is trying to get her life back and trying to have a new sense of freedom because she knows that, she beat her cancer, but it could always come back. You never know. They have a son named Steven, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, who is absolutely pretty solid as just playing a son. But, like, man, some of the interactions him and his mama have are so weird. Like, the humor is just so, oh, gosh, it's so good. But so Craig has this neighbor named Austin that he ends up meeting because he always ends up getting Austin's packages because the mailman always messes up because their addresses, I guess, are like a number off or whatever. So he ends up always having to go bring them over to them. And when he does one day, I guess he had never done it before until that day. When he meets his neighbor, Austin, played by Paul Rudd, who's this like smooth weatherman, nighttime weatherman, on the news, and who is in a band. He's like everything that Craig wants to be. He's like this cool guy, he's got all these friends. So because of that little interaction, they end up Austin invites him to come over and hang out, and he gets to meet his friends and ends up kind of feeling like one of the bros and has a great time. And it turns out some things happen that actually kind of shake that friendship, that barely blooming friendship. They end up having a boxing match that kind of goes wrong. He breaks a sliding door. Just all this stuff ends up going on. It's funny, but it's like I said, the awkwardness and the tone of it is so good. It's genuinely awesome, but awkward and fun. Those laughs where like you feel like you shouldn't laugh, but you want to laugh, or you're laughing out loud because it's so awkward, and you're like, oh my God, no way that just happened. It's just there's so much of that in this movie. It's fantastic. So after a couple bad swings, a couple days later, he finds out that Austin actually doesn't want to be his friend anymore. He's like, hey man, look, we had a couple nice hangs, we had a good time here and there, but we'll just stay neighbors and, just go our own ways, and it just kind of makes Craig go crazy. He's just kind of like, what? You can't do that. You guys accepted me as your friend, and all of a sudden you don't want to hang out with me because, a few things happen, and it's like, hey, some people just don't have the patience, and other people just don't, really interact. You don't always click with everybody. It's like being at work. You have your job and you have your coworkers who could become friends, but most of the time they're really just going to stay as coworkers. If you leave the job or if they left the job, wouldn't hurt you, wouldn't bum you out for just the work, being at work and not being able to maybe see the cool coworker. But it's not going to ruin your psyche and it's not going to make you existentially freak out and know that like, oh my God, I miss this person. It's like if that was really, really the case, maybe you would have got their number, maybe you would have hung out with them outside of work. Stuff like that. So Craig is just spiraling down because he's lost this great friend of his, right? And he just does one thing after another of this just ridiculousness to try to show that he is like a man. He is actually a fun person. He is worth being friends with, even though some people will never see him that way, or they will barely accept him that way, even if he when he really seems to be trying. But yeah, it was just genuinely a really cool movie, especially, for that type of people that are like kind of awkward or socially awkward. This movie really showed that that's okay, and you can always just try again next time. You can always just keep moving at it. You can always keep trying to meet new people, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. But if you randomly do, maybe go for it. Maybe actually take that friendship seriously, or maybe actually just appreciate the person, or take the person into regards, or think of them if you're gonna do something, and maybe if they're down to join you, cool. If not, fine. Because at the end of the film, he realizes that he is kind of like, a lone wolf. But the way it's portrayed is just so bad. And, then he tries to end up, rekindling the friendship, which kind of goes off sour again. And like I said, if you've never seen the sketch show, I'm Sorry to Bother You, definitely watch that maybe before you watch this movie, or just watch this movie and then watch the sketch show, and you'll see exactly why he's so good at, Tim Robinson is so good at playing this unhinged, awkward, socially awkward character. But yeah, it was a fantastic movie. Paul Rudd play, like I said, his character is so random. He really like is just a normal cool dude who has one little hiccup. I won't mention it because it really is it's like a turning point in the movie. But you know, Tim Robinson's Craig actually like he respects him for it, and so it's kind of funny because that's where their friendship really holds together, of like how they care about each other in a sense. And it's kind of funny because at the end of the movie it does end on a note where you're like, you know, are they friends? Are they like, you know, are they forgiven? Like maybe not, but it could be. We'll have to wait to see what happens in Friendship 2. Definitely suggest you guys go check it out for a laugh, because it definitely made us laugh. It's been Ghost in the Craig. Thank you so much. Friendship, enjoy it. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.